Hello and welcome back to Born to Rant. I'm Brandon, and this week we are diving deep into a movie that manages to blend surreal imagery, melodrama, tragedy, and the unique charm that only Robin Williams can bring to tell the story of a man traveling to the depths of hell to save his wife from her own misery. That's right, today we are diving deep into 1998's What Dreams May Come, directed by Vincent Ward and starring Robin Williams, Cuba Gooding Jr., Annabella Sciorra, and a man who has a little bit of experience facing off against death, Max Von Sydow. We'll take a look at the origins of the movie, how the movie was made, everything that still makes it worth your time, and its legacy over 25 years later. I actually have a very vivid memory of seeing What Dreams May Come for the first time. My brother, cousin, and I were all visiting my aunt, and I convinced her to rent it for us to watch. And I have this strong memory of sitting on the floor and watching this movie on what couldn't have been bigger than like a 24-inch tube TV on VHS. And I just remember being absolutely floored by the images I was seeing. Realistically, this was probably the first movie that I ever saw that had any sort of surrealist imagery in it. I mean, I was 8, so it's not like I was exactly ready to start watching David Lynch movies. Although I do think that What Dreams May Come is directly responsible for me learning to appreciate surrealism. And then throughout my teenage years, this was a movie that I would revisit with some consistency, watching it pretty much anytime it would play on cable. But after high school, this movie sort of faded from my memory. I didn't revisit this movie again until just last week. And I gotta say, I think that this held up both better and worse than I expected. I think this is still absolutely a visual feast from start to finish. Even the stuff that takes place in the real world is shot absolutely masterfully and captures the melancholic tone of the movie flawlessly. But then, once we're in the afterlife, we're treated to incredible visual after incredible visual. Whether that's Christie's paint-filled world or all the various levels of hell, this movie grabs your eyeballs and it just refuses to let go. As far as what didn't hold up so well, I do think the script is a little overly melodramatic, but that was obviously the intent of the story, to tell a story so tragic that you believe these characters absolutely deserve their happy ending. Actually, one other thing that struck me while rewatching this movie is that Hook and What Dreams May Come would kind of make a killer double feature about growing up and dying, which I know sounds like a bummer, but if you've got Robin Williams as your guide, I don't know, it sounds kind of fun to me. And before we get too deep into what makes What Dreams May Come still a great watch, let's go back in time and learn a little bit more about how the movie came to be. And it all starts with this guy, Richard Matheson, who released the novel of the same name back in 1978, and it was met with some solid success. Over the next 20 years, the book would be primed to become a movie, but it took until the late 90s jumps in CGI until it was decided that it was a story that could be properly adapted. And I do actually think that for the most part, the CG used in this movie still looks great today. And a big part of that is that the movie was primarily shot on location and all of the CGI is layered over plates of real footage. Once the movie was purchased by Interscope Pictures, it went straight into development, and one of the first people brought on board was New Zealand-born director Vincent Ward. And Ward was a pretty interesting choice to helm a $90 million movie, considering at this point in his career, he hadn't had any big commercial hits, but he did get a story by credit on Alien 3, and his previous movie, Map of the Human Heart, had done very well with critics. So once Ward was on board, he brought on cinematographer Eduardo Serra because the two had enjoyed working together on Map of the Human Heart. And Serra was mostly known for shooting films in Europe, and I think you can tell when watching this movie that it has a very European style, but more on the cinematography in a bit. As for casting, Robin Williams was initially hesitant to join the film because of the dark subject matter, but he found the overall feeling of the story about eternal love so effective that he eventually signed on to star, and the movie was also offered to his co-star Annabella Sciorra multiple times before she finally accepted the role. And it was only after doing a screen test with her Cadillac Man co-star that she understood how magical their chemistry was and agreed to do the movie. And in June of 1997, What Dreams May Come went into production with a reported budget of between $85 and $90 million, and the movie would be filmed primarily on location in Marin County, Alameda County, Glacier National Park, and Angel Falls. Actually, one of the coolest set piece fun facts I found is that Hell was primarily shot on the decrepit hull of an aircraft carrier, which is just kinda sick. I don't think I've ever seen Hell really portrayed this way before or since, and a lot of that definitely has to do with the way that it looks. The rest of the hell stuff was shot at Alameda Naval Air Station in an indoor swimming pool surrounded by blue screen, and these poor extras had to spend 2 12-hour days in this pool shooting the sequence. Production would wrap a few months later in October of 1997, and the movie would then go into kind of a strange post-production process. The main reason I say that is that there were two very weird stories I found regarding the music of the movie. The first is that according to the movie's music supervisor, Don Solier, there were originally plans for an unreleased Guns N' Roses song called This I Love to be featured in the movie, but for unknown reasons, it just never made it in. The score of the movie also ended up being done by Michael Kamen, who we've talked about a couple different times on this channel. Check out my videos on Last Action Hero and Three Musketeers if you want to hear more. But Kamen was actually a late addition to the post-production process, because initially Ennio Morricone had been hired to do the score, and it was apparently used in several test screenings, but it was ultimately removed and replaced with Kamen's score, and there has never been any public acknowledgement of this or why Morricone's score was removed, but I do think that Kamen's score does a great job. And finally, on October 2nd, 1998, What Dreams May Come was released into theaters, and on its opening weekend, it would only make $15.8 million against its nearly $90 million budget, and place second at the box office behind DreamWorks Pictures' Ants, which is an insane movie that I will definitely have to talk about at some point. Over the course of its theatrical run, What Dreams May Come would end up making a worldwide total of $71.4 million, making it a mild disappointment at the box office, but of course, once it hit home video, it exploded in popularity. And before we go any further, if you're enjoying this video so far, just a quick reminder that this is a completely independent channel and there is no AI used in the making of my videos. And if that means anything to you at all, it would mean the world if you would like and subscribe to the channel. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's dive into everything that still makes What Dreams May Come worth watching today.
I didn't do that.
No, I did.
Honestly, I think the central premise alone is still strong. The story of a husband and wife who tragically lose their two children in a car accident, and just as the two find a way through the tragedy, the husband is killed in a completely different car accident, and when he wakes up in the afterlife, he quickly learns that his wife has committed suicide, and he goes on a journey to rescue her from hell. And if we're talking about what works in the movie, I think the big two things are the performances and the cinematography. Specifically, Robin Williams is just at the top of his game here. I mentioned earlier, I think this movie would make an excellent double feature with Hook, where Hook is a story about a man rediscovering his inner child and learning to be there for his family. What Dreams May Come is about a man who travels to the literal depths of hell to save any one member of his family. Like all good Robin Williams performances, he gets a chance to show off his comedy chops just a bit here and there, but this is by and large a completely dramatic performance. Actually, in doing research, I learned that Williams and Ward kind of clashed on set because Ward really wanted him to stick to the script, but of course Williams really wanted to improvise. But the real strength of the movie comes from the chemistry between Williams and Annabella Sciorra as the tragically linked husband and wife characters Christy and Annie, and the two have several great moments together, but obviously it's the finale of the movie where the two are trapped in Annie's hell that they really are firing on all cylinders. I love the way that Annie's lucidity keeps coming and going, and how Christy almost manages to snap her out of it several times before finally giving up. And I love the fake out of him giving up, only to reveal that he's giving up his afterlife in paradise to instead stay in hell with his beloved wife, and that this is the thing that finally manages to pull Annie out of her own personal hell and enter Christy's afterlife. As far as the other performances in the movie, I think Cuba Gooding Jr. is just okay, but Max Von Sydow, on the other hand, is absolutely fantastic. And I mean, who else could possibly be your shepherd through hell but the guy who has a history of playing chess with death and going up against the devil? But I genuinely think that Von Sydow is the best supporting performance in the movie. He's very serious, but still pretty fun. Like, his introduction alone is great, plus he has the coolest line in the movie.
Elevator to hell, going up.
But obviously, the real reason that this movie is still worth watching today is the way that Eduardo Serra shot the movie. Even the stuff set in the real world looks absolutely incredible. Like the shot of Christie pulling up to the car accident looks amazing. I really love how the tunnel is lit by the red brake lights. There's also the stuff right after Christie dies with out of focus Cuba Gooding Jr., and I like how the camera floats through the house in a very ghost-like way. There's also the haunting moment of Annie going to visit Chris's grave and him trying to comfort her, only for her to start screaming and crying, and he realizes he can't stay there anymore. He has to move on. And the setting here with the blooming tree and Annie's matching scarf is just beautiful. But obviously, the main visual treats of this movie come once Christie has died. First, we get his world, which is of course initially built as an oil painting, and the way that the CGI interacts with the real world here is breathtaking. This was all shot in person on location, and then Mass Illusions, who would go on to create the bullet time effect for The Matrix right around the same time, went in and added the paint and brush strokes, and the whole thing is just absolutely breathtaking, even by 2026 standards. But for real, there are just so many shots in this brief section alone that would be the best looking shot in any other movie, and here it's just the preamble to our main adventure. I also think that the stuff in Marie's afterlife world is really cool too, but I just genuinely love all of the afterlife imagery in this movie, including the giant library where they find Max Von Sydow's tracker, and of course the sailboat they use to sail into the depths of hell is also just sick. And I love how rich everything in this movie looks. All of the colors are so vibrant, and you can hit pause on pretty much any scene and get a shot that could be a painting. And that only continues as we make our way into hell. The beach covered in faces all crying out in agony is yet another hellish afterlife moment that just really sticks with me. We also get a cameo from the one and only Werner Herzog before we finally arrive to find Annie's personal hell. And I mean, the production design throughout this movie has been insane, but it's really this last stretch of hell where it becomes almost overwhelming, and just a big shout out to art director Eugenio Zanetti for his work on this movie. We've actually covered a few different movies that he's worked on the channel, like The Haunting and Last Action Hero, and honestly, I think that What Dreams May Come may be his best work. And what else is there to say about the cinematography in this movie? It's really the main reason to put it on. It's just absolutely breathtaking from start to finish. Like I said, even the stuff set in the real world looks absolutely amazing. And I think the way the movie will cut back and forth between the real world and the afterlife really makes both settings pop that much harder. We'll go from these beautiful, almost oil painting-like shots to moments of Christie having quiet conversations with members of his family. And it's just always a visual treat, no matter who he's talking to. I think a big part of that is the fact that the production chose to shoot this on Fuji Velvia film stock, which is typically used for landscape photography because of its very high color saturation. And I think it really helps sets this movie apart from not only other movies of the era, but other movies that lean into surrealist imagery. So, over 25 years later, what is the legacy of What Dreams May Come? Well, it definitely has its fans. I think for those of us who saw it at the right age and before we had seen any other surreal movies, it holds a special place in our hearts. This was the first time I ever saw things that made no logical sense put to screen, and it really influenced the kinds of movies I would grow to seek out as I became older. Like, would I have ever seen The Cell or Dark City or any David Lynch movie if I hadn't seen What Dreams May Come at the right age? I mean, probably, but it was because of this movie that I actively sought out movies that would take me on a journey to somewhere dreamlike. And obviously, we lost the late great Robin Williams in 2014, and I think this movie shines just a little brighter now that we don't have him. It can be comforting to turn this on and see him in paradise and believe he could be there now. But overall, I think What Dreams May Come has some issues. It's a little overly corny and melodramatic, but I also think that is okay for the story it's trying to tell. And like I've said multiple times, the main reason to watch this movie is to get lost in the beautiful world that Vincent Ward, Eduardo Serra, Eugenio Zanetti, and Mass Illusions managed to create for us. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you love this movie still? Do you think I'm being a little too harsh on the aspects that don't work? Was this also your introduction to surreal movies? If you've made it this far into the video, thank you for watching. It truly means the world. And as always, a very special thank you to my patrons who help keep the channel running. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and check back every Thursday as we cover all of your favorite movies. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.